Continuing in our study of parenting by the Psalms. This morning we're in lesson 5. I hope you had opportunity to read that. And the psalm that we'll be considering this morning is Psalm 27. And it is just chock full of things that we need to get across to our children. To give them a better life, that they might be able to face the onslaughts of this world and do so with confidence and without anxiety. There's no volume. So what do you think happened there? Lightning struck. And they were all having a big time, and then lightning struck, and and they run and they get away. You ever been that way? You ever been scared by lightning? I remember when I was just a little kid, and me and my brother were at the front door, the storm door. This was on 61 David Street, Cahokia, Illinois. And it came a storm. And the lightning popped, and the thunder came, and we were scared. And my dad, in the vernacular of his youth, said, "No need to be afraid, boys. When your time's up, your time's up." And we kind of carried that throughout our lives, not to be afraid. Psalm 27 is written by David. And a lot of times we have this picture of David. In fact, I had a graphic of that I did not use. A picture of David with his lyre out on a mountaintop, peaceful and calm and playing that and writing his song. The truth of the matter is, David was in a tight place. The scene depicted here is Battle of the Bulge, World War II. This was Bastogne. Our troops, U.S. Airborne 101, is that right? Were surrounded. And they withheld. And, they were very courageous in doing so. They were what we would call today hunkered down. Okay? I want you to imagine David surrounded by his enemies. David was hunkered down, y'all. His life hangs in the balance. Fear floods his mind and his body. The power to change his situation eludes him. Saul and his armies are after him. And they're not after him to play patty cake. They're after him to kill him. In the midst of all that, a thought comes to David. Now, was it a lightning bolt? I doubt that. I doubt that seriously. I think David's been preparing for this all his life. But his spirit is elevated out of despair. Again, I want you to picture a scene of battle where you think things may not go your way. And that's the situation David was in. Pam said I overdid this, and I did. But I wanted to give you several different versions, translations of Psalm 1 because it's such a good psalm. The English Standard Version, I don't know why this is cutting off. Oh, it isn't up there. The English Standard Version is, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is a stronghold of my life." What's a stronghold? A fortress. A fortress. And we've sang the song, "A mighty fortress is my God." The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? The Christian Standard Bible has, "The Lord is my light, my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom should I dread?" I wanted to put a collage together of things that our children face. And Pam told me, said, "Now don't be melodramatic. I can't help myself. Just bear with me." Okay? Has this got a pointer? Situation of a young girl and 3 presumed friends ridiculing her. And I think I told you that happened in our family not too long ago. Our oldest granddaughter was sharing text with her friends. Her friends knew that Isabella was reading those texts, and they wrote ugly things, just ugly things. And she was in the bathroom when we discovered, and she was wailing, y'all. And so we sought to comfort her, and I think did. This is one that touches my heart because, as you know, I substitute teach. This is a teacher bullying a young man that's probably doing the best he can. This is a girl that is struggling in school for the day. We don't know what is happening in her life at home. Another young man being made fun of by his classmates. This is a child in the middle of a divorce, his parents being divorced, and that child is faced with adult problems. A young man suffering from ADHD or maybe dyslexia, and the frustration. And we have that in our family. Both Josh and Hayden have ADHD. And you can see the frustration when they want to do and have difficulty doing. Whoop, wrong key. This young girl reminds me of Amy Megan. We didn't realize it at the time, but Amy suffered from severe anxiety throughout most of her youth. We didn't know it. And it manifested in several different ways. This could be a picture of me. I sucked at baseball. And how many times I had to walk away from home plate having struck out once again. A young man saying, "What is going on?" In the exaltation of victory, we always have defeat. And then for our older kids, having taken the ACT for the 3rd time and come to realize that one of your plans for your future is not going to be realized and you have to make changes. These are things our kids go through, and you can name countless other things. But this is their reality. And Psalms 27 can help a great deal. Let's read the first 3 verses together. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, now not literally, but my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, like at the Battle of the Bulge, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. What's the tone presented by David in these 3 verses? I'm not above calling names. Under attack. Okay. Looking to God for the strength. What tone do you see in these verses? Surety. God's already been doing that for him. He knows where his strength comes from, yeah. Very important. God's got his back. You know, and again, I can be melodramatic, but I almost see him, I've got this. You know what I mean? Do you feel that way? When life besets you, do you feel that way? David felt that way, and we're assured in Psalm 27 that we can feel that way. Someone read for us 2 Corinthians 12:9, please.
But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness is, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me.
How many of you have that as one of your favorite verses? Anybody? This is a favorite verse of Pam's. My grace is sufficient. Somebody look up Ephesians 6:10. And read that for us. Say it again.
Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power.
That's it. What follows after that verse? Do you know? Yeah. Be strong in the Lord. And look, when we're beset by sin, do you feel that way? When you're tempted and you're at that point in that temptation of turning away and turning to God, or turning away from God and turning to sin. And we all have been there. Do you feel that confidence that, Lord, I don't know how you're going to make this better, but I'm trusting in you. And not only am I trusting in you, I'm going to clothe myself. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to fight against this. And then someone look up Isaiah 41:10.
So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right.
Is that encouraging to you? Is that encouraging to you? And then turn over to Isaiah 42 in verse 2. This is speaking of Jesus. He will not cry aloud or lift up his voice or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his law. That's our Savior. That's our leader, folks. That's the head of us that has that attitude. And he fulfilled on it, didn't he? And we have salvation today because of that. So Psalm 27 gives us hope, doesn't it? It gives us strength that we don't shrink. What a great legacy, Jason, to pass to your kids. That they know they have the wherewithal. Does that mean everything's going to go their way? No. But they have the wherewithal to withstand. So, let's go back to Psalm 27. And we didn't read the whole thing, so I'm going to read the whole thing for you. And then we're going to talk about some things. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom should I be afraid? When evildoers come against me to devour my flesh, my foes, my enemies, stumbled and fell. Though an army deploys against me, my heart is not afraid. Though a war breaks out against me, still I am confident. I have asked one thing from the Lord. It is what I desire, to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, gazing on the beauty of the Lord and seeking him in his temple. For he will conceal me in his shelter in the day of adversity. He will hide me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Then my head will be high above my enemies around me. I will offer sacrifices in his tent with joy, shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Lord, hear my voice when I call. Be gracious to me and answer me. My heart says this about you. You are to seek my face, Lord. I will seek your face. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not leave me or abandon me, God of my salvation. Even if my father and mother abandon me, the Lord cares for me. Because of my adversaries, show me your way, Lord, and lead me on a level path. Do not give me over to the wills of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, breathing violence. I am certain that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and courageous. Wait for the Lord. In verse 1, how does the Lord is my light apply to experiencing fear? First, let me ask, have you experienced fear? Raise your hand if you've ever experienced fear in your life. Yeah, it's not unique, is it? We've all been there. So how does the Lord is my light? And I want you to, whenever you answer these questions, I want you to think of your children. And I want you to think how you would explain this to them. How does the Lord is my light apply to experiencing fear?
Fear is like leaving a door open, and everything just seems to be closing in on you, and you don't really know where to look or where to turn. And God is like a candle that lights
Very well put. Do you feel that way? Do you understand what she was talking about? You couldn't hear, could you? She was saying, fear is like being in a dark room. You can't see. You don't know what's in that dark room. You can't move around for fear of stumbling. It's closing in on you. The Lord is my light is like a candle in that room. So how would you teach that to your 5-year-old?
Kids are often afraid of the dark.
I know adults are afraid of the dark. So,
It's easy for them, I think, to understand it because they all have
yeah. Hey, and what she said about a candle, we could say a candle or bright sunlight, and it's more like bright sunlight, but candle gives us hope, doesn't it? In verse 5, how does lifting me high upon a rock illustrate safety? Now I want you to think about it in terms of battle. Maybe, Jason, in terms of King of the Hill. Did you ever play that?
You can see more when you're higher. You feel safe because you're not getting whatever chaos might be going on.
Yeah. And you have an advantage. It's easier to go downhill than it is to go uphill, isn't it? So you have an advantage, and if your head is high above your enemy, that's a real distinct advantage to have. Verse 7, what comfort do you feel from God hearing you cry? Now see, when I was a young kid and growing up, no matter how bad it hurt, Millie, you didn't want anybody to see you cry. Unfortunately, as I get older, that Wyatt gene is kicking in, and we can cry at a drop of a hat in the men in my family. What's provided to you by knowing that God hears you crying? Comfort. How so? How would you convey that to your children? Go ahead.
I remember when the kids were little, there was a place like Sears, and Annie would get to running around in Sears, and she'd get lost. And she would start crying and everything else. Me right there, hear her crying, and we'd come to her, and that made her the happiest little girl in the world. And that's kind of like what happens. We know Mama is listening, or Daddy is listening, and they're going to come get us out of our situation. That kind of makes us happy.
It's almost like a mother hen. When the chicks are in danger, they all run to that mother hen and hide under that mother hen. That's the image that I see when I think about God comforting me, gathering me in. And I told you about my granddaughter Isabella. That was our first instinct, was not to necessarily talk to her about what to do or how to do, but simply to comfort. And God recognizes that in us too, doesn't He? That sometimes we need a there, don't we? Verse 11, what benefit is a level path provided by God? And some of you that haven't been speaking up, please feel free to join. What benefit is a level path provided by God? Now, I'm going to restrict the answering of this question to those in the audience that are over 70. Okay? So those of you over 70, listen up. What benefit is a level path provided by God?
It's the difference between a good sidewalk and a treadmill. I don't shuffle on the treadmill. Shuffle it on the sidewalk, I won't feel my face.
Pam and I, this past fall, we were lucky enough to go back to our alma mater of University of Tennessee at Martin. And we went to watch a football game. Now, it was bitterly cold. We made it 1/4. But as we were leaving, going down those steps, Pam stumbled and fell. Luckily, she fell back. And she was laughing about it, so, it was all good. But as you get older, you have to be a little bit more careful. Balance is an issue. You can stumble on level ground, but not quite as bad. God makes our paths smooth. For those that would stumble, it's more straight. Okay? How can waiting on the Lord bring strength? Well, first let me ask, what's meant here by waiting on the Lord? Now, Brennan, I know you're a professional, but feel free to input here, okay? How can waiting on the Lord bring strength to a person? You ever had your patience tried by God?
Yeah, I think this one, along with the last one, where it says, "First you gotta keep your way," that the reason that that's a straight middle path because it's the way that God created us to be. So when I think about waiting on the Lord, I think about all the times where I want to maybe rush the process or out of selfish ambition do something instead of having the fruit of the Spirit in the way that God calls us.
We can be a bull in a china shop at times, can't we? Waiting on the Lord is just, I think it's a necessary step in our growth, don't you? To learn to trust God, to have assurance in God, and to wait and know that in God's time, things will be taken care of. Is that,
And waiting, once you, say, get what you want, or whatever happens, then it feels a little more sweeter, I guess, If God makes something we wanted right when we wanted it, then it doesn't mean as much to you.
it wasn't anything that we did unique or that others haven't done, but our group on Sunday night, we always, or we have, make a prayer list that for those that are there, I text out that we might pray throughout the week for whatever's on our prayer list. It was instructive one time to go back to those lists from several weeks or months ago and read what our prayer requests were about and to know that God took care of those things. And and it wasn't anything to Harold and Millie. They're much wiser than me, but for me, that was really eye-opening. That, wait a minute, we prayed about that, and God took care of it. Do we seize upon those opportunities with our children? Number one, do we pray with our children? Do we pray about their concerns? And then do we keep a tally of it so that we can return to it and say, you remember when we prayed about this? That was God. You understand what I'm saying? Look, I've already told y'all, if you look, and I've lived here amongst y'all for a long time. You saw me raise my children. You said, my Lord, what is the matter with that man? But we learn, don't we? We learn. So I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I am suggesting that we need to be more interactive with our children, and some of you are, and our grandchildren. We need to be more interactive with them. What do you tell yourself when you're afraid? Now I'm going to put this in human terms. What do you tell yourself when your job is downsized and you're laid off and you have responsibilities and you don't know what's down the road for you? Are you afraid? Yeah. Are we living in anxiety? No, but those immediate things we fear. If someone's sick in our family, we fear, don't we? We're afraid. That's not to say that we live in a sense of anxiety. Philippians 4 addresses that, doesn't it? But we have fears. Fear is something all of us have felt. I can remember trying to go up for tenure. Millie knew because Millie could see it on my face. I don't know whether you remember, but you were a great encouragement to me when I was worrying that, boy, if I don't get tenure, then I got a year to find a job to take care of my family. You understand what I'm talking about? Or the fear you feel when a child or a grandchild is in the hospital. I will never forget the fear that I felt when our eldest grandson was over 2 months premature. But we prayed, and we see God taking care of Hayden. Those are big issues. Those are big issues, too big for children to understand generally. But we need to find issues that they can relate to prepare them for those bigger things that are going to happen in their lives. Everybody understand what I'm saying? I mean, we ask ourselves, how can you endure the loss of a child? And the way you endure a loss of a child is being in God and understanding the assurance God offers us. We need to give that to our children. We need to supply them with that so that when life goes awry, they know in whom they believe. When you're afraid, what thoughts would you like your child to have when they're fearful? What thoughts would you like your child, your grandchild, your nephew, niece, what thoughts would you like them to have when they're afraid? Huh?
Remember to give it to God.
Remember to give it to God. Now, is God a genie in the bottle? No. Doesn't mean that things are going to go the way you would like them to go. But it means you're safe. It means you're secure. And that's a great legacy to give to our children. So this one's kind of, I didn't come up with this question. When will you start telling your child these more helpful thoughts? And that's up to you. I see with our grandchildren, we're always waiting for the time to be right. You know what I mean? And I see opportunities sometimes that we've missed to just help them a bit. This is a really good question, and I want to hear comments about it. Why is preparing your child often more important than protecting your child? Why is preparing your child often more important than protecting your child?
Sometimes it's the same thing, preparing.
Yeah, you're giving them protection, but not necessarily directly, yeah. But you are preparing them because you're not always there. Who is always there? God. God. And we need to make God very real and very tangible to them. Do you reinforce courage and reliance on God in your family? How many of you have ever seen courage demonstrated by your child or your grandchild or your nephew, niece? Have you ever seen courage? What courage have you seen?
When a roach runs across the floor, and your daughter tries to jump on you, get the roach out of the way, and you just stand there and happen. She's bigger than you, and she got them out in my hands now. We both put it.
I've had the luxury of being able to teach my children, my grandchildren, how to swim. And they trust Granddad. They don't like him, but they trust him. Okay? And they will allow me to help them learn to trust in their ability. That's courage. To see a grandchild who last fall picked up a trombone for the first time in his life, and that spring competed in a band contest with that trombone with other band members. That's courage. Do we promote that? That poor kid, me, striking out. You know what I remember about baseball? I was really terrible. I was a good fielder, but I couldn't hit the ball to save my life because I was afraid of the ball. Consequently, I was on a team one year, and they evidently didn't have the rules back then that every child had to play so many innings. And this coach I showed up every game, I sat on the bench every game, until my friend Mark Ratterman's mother chewed him out up one side and down the other, put me in to bat the very next inning, which I promptly struck out once again. You see courage all the time, don't you? Do you challenge your children to and this is a favorite of mine, did you see God today? Well, maybe another question to ask, did you see anybody show courage today? And how did they do that? Do you reinforce courage and reliance on God in your family? Do we praise? It's basically what it's asking. Do you praise? Do we promote courage in our congregation? Ken, how many times have you seen young men get up here trembling and read Scripture? That's courage. And I think we do. I think we promote that. I think we've maybe fallen away a little bit from that, but we need to do that. Or young ladies maybe help with a class, a younger class. We need to do those things. We need to involve our children in our congregation, not just our children. They need to be part of our congregation, and we need to do that. So, this is that next few minutes, I want you to tell me how you're going to teach Psalm 27. What situations, what opportunities you might look for to teach Psalm 27 to your children. Also, what situations we might look for in our congregation to teach Psalm 27. So, 1, 2, 3, go.
First off, if you don't have younger people in your congregation, because the congregation's gonna die. I'm not sure it will. Because eventually everybody's gonna die. If God don't come before at a certain time, or it doesn't matter. But I'm gonna grow old. I still remember when I was 21, now I'm 55, so I'm the next generation to start teaching these young people, you know, the responsibilities of the church. Because they're gonna be the next generation behind us. My mom and dad are older than me, they're getting old, so they're kind of stepping back. Now it's our time to shine. So if you don't start shining, the church is gonna die. Just because I've seen it many times. So we need to start in involving, putting our younger kids, giving them ready to take the next step up.
From a congregational standpoint, what do we do for young families? What do we do for young families from a congregational standpoint?
Need to get them involved.
I mean, we have teen programs, right? We do have that. What do we do? And those of you who know me, this is a pet peeve of mine. What do we do for young families? Certainly, it starts at home. It starts with parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts. But as a congregation, what do we do? I'm haunted by this. You know my daughter Amy, and you worked with her and Josh in youth programs. I remember you both doing that, and Jerry and Melissa. Amy does not take her kids to church. She knows she should. She wants to. She just hasn't. Now, she talks to them about God. But Amy's question or her comment is always, I want to find a place that has something for my children. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know what that something is. She doesn't know what that something is. But we need to find a way to make you young parents feel good about involving your children. Not just a sense of duty. Huh?
We deal with the same thing. The thing is, if they ever go out and drive, we'll get to the area where they're never going to find it.
I'm sorry?
They're never going to find that something if they don't go out.
No, they're not. And I'm not defending Amy in that. I mean,
Sometimes, though, as a parent, you can say stuff to them when they're just kind of, okay, sometimes it'd be nice if, church members did.
yeah, I'm not big on programs, so kind of take this with a grain of salt. But you remember when Pam and I were doing the little before service teach the children? Now, we didn't do it very well, I'm sure, but we did not feel that there was a lot of support for that. And I don't know whether it made any difference in your children's lives. It made a difference in one child's life, Estelle, and we knew that. It made a difference in her brother's life, and more importantly, it made a difference in their mother's life. So I'm not suggesting that we come up with a program, but we need to think about and do some hard thinking and discussion. What do we do in our congregation to make this great for young families?
One thing I wanted to mention, and Jolie's a little bit older, but still, in the last year, we've talked with her, because she was the only child for a while in her class. So we talked to her about, do you want to go to another congregation? Just talking with her.
Sure.
And one thing that she said was she didn't want to leave this church because she has adults that are her friends. Like Miss Jennifer takes her out to lunch, Miss Melissa. So even though there wasn't a lot of kids her age here, she had a relationship with adult women in the congregation, and that made a difference. She didn't want to leave. This is where she feels comfortable, and she knows those ladies, and so they made an impact on her.
Yeah, and I'm not denigrating our congregation. Please don't think that. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that those sorts of things play for adults too, a lot of times. But we've come to a close, and I want to challenge you to think about our young families, think about our children, think about how we teach Psalms 27, not so that they can recite it, but so that as they go through life, their life is better because of it. Thank you for your attention.